Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 43 of your student journal. We're on page 43 of your student journal. Now, although their title looks very different than it did in our last video, what we're doing today is actually a continuation of our last video. So we're going to be continuing our same idea. So our goal today is going to be, today I will subtract using different strategies to solve word problems. Okay, so take a second to get that caught up. So it's the same goal as we had in our last video. Today I will subtract using different strategies to solve word problems. Now if we look at our vocabulary today, we're going to notice it's the same. So what I want to point out is, remember this inverse operation that we talked about yesterday, that the inverse operations are addition and subtraction because they're the opposite operations. But understanding that will help you be able to solve these word problems. And then we have the number bond strategy and the tape-like diagram, which are very similar. They both have the whole number on top and then the two parts. So the two parts, when you add them, equal your whole. And we're going to use those today as we're reading through our problems as well. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get started on my first problem. If you want to set down your pencil and watch. My first problem says, Jane read 472 pages during her summer vacation. She read more pages during her winter vacation. Jane read a total of 589 pages. How many pages did she read during winter vacation? Okay, so what do I know from this? I know that she read a total of 589 pages. That was her total. And I know during summer, she read 472 pages. What I don't know is how many she read during winter. I don't know the other part. So I know her total was 589. I know during summer she read this, and then during winter we're not quite sure. Okay, but what do I know about my number bond strategy? I know my two parts have to equal my whole. So I know 472 plus this needs to equal my whole. Okay, but this is hard to solve. So I also know that I could use the inverse. I know my whole minus one of my parts equals my other part. That if I take away one of the parts, I'm going to be left with the other part. So I can set this subtraction problem up in working form. So 589, take away 472. And what do I have? Let's see. I have 9, take away 2 is 7. I have 8, take away 7 is 1. And I have 5, take away 4 is 1. So she read 117 pages during her winter vacation. That was my other part. And these two parts equal my whole. Okay, let's look at another one of those, ladies and gentlemen. This says, on Monday, some moths emerged from their cocoons. If you've never seen a moth, it looks kind of like a butterfly, but its body is a lot fatter and chubbier. And they're usually not as colorful as butterflies. So on Monday, some moths emerged from their cocoons. The next day, 324 moths emerged from their cocoons. Then there were 462 moths. How many moths emerged from their cocoons on Monday? So what do I know? I know some emerged on Monday, but I don't know how many. I know some emerged the next day, which would be Tuesday. And then I know what the total was. So we know, and let's do it, I'm going to do a tape diagram for this. I know the total amount of moths they had were 462. I don't know how many emerged on Monday, but I know the next day 324 emerged. But I don't know how many emerged on Monday. Tuesday, this many. Okay, so what do I know? Well, I know that my part plus this must equal my whole, because my 2 parts have to equal my whole. Okay, but I also know that this is going to be hard to solve. So I can use the inverse operation, and I know that the whole take away one of the parts will give me the other part. So this is the one I'm going to use because I can set this up using the algorithm, which is setting it up like this, and I can solve it. Okay, so let's set this up and solve it. So I have 2 take away 4 I can't do. I'm going to regroup. The 6 tens is going to become 5 tens, and the 12 ones is going to be, the 2 ones is going to become 12 ones. I added 10 ones. So now I have 12 take away 4 is 8, 5 take away 2 is 3, and 4 take away 3 is 1. So my answer is, on Monday, 138 moths must have emerged from their cocoons. And that's my other part. So my 2 parts equal my whole. Okay, boys and girls, let's do some together. I'm going to put down my red pen and grab my green pen if you want to pick up your pencil and join me. We are on page 44. Okay, our first problem says, last week 654 apples were picked from the orchard. There were 450 green apples. The rest of the apples were red. How many apples were red? Okay, so what do we know? We know how many apples were picked. We know some were green and some were red. We know 450 were green, but we don't know the other part. We don't know the number for the other part, which were the red ones. So we know the total. We know how many apples there were. There's 654. And we know one part of those apples is 450 green apples. But we don't know how many red apples there were. So we don't know this one. Okay, we know that if I add my 2 parts, 450 plus this part, I'm going to get 654. My 2 parts are going to equal my total. Okay, I can do the inverse, which means the opposite operation, and I also know that if I have my whole and I take away one of the parts, I'm going to get the other part. So this is the equation that we can set up as our algorithm. So let's set it up in working form. 654 take away 450. Okay, and then we'll find out how many apples were red. 4 take away 0 is 4. 5 take away 5 is 0. And 6 take away 4 is 2. So we know that I can say red. There was 204 red apples. That was my other part. So now my 2 parts equaled my whole. But there's 204 red apples. Okay, let's do one more together, boys and girls. This one says, the 3rd grade class collected some magazines for the school recycling bin on Monday. Then on Tuesday, the class brought in 312 more magazines. There were 510 magazines after collecting both days. How many magazines were collected on Monday? Okay, so what do we know? We know that there's a total of 510 magazines after both days. We know on Tuesday there was 312. We don't know how many were brought in on Monday. So we know the total, and let's do a tape diagram for this one. We know the total is 510 magazines. We know on Tuesday there was 312 magazines. We don't know how many magazines there were Monday. Okay, so we know the part plus the other part has to equal the whole. So the two parts have to equal the whole. We also could do the inverse and say, I know that the whole take away one of the parts equals the other part. Okay, so we can set it up and solve that. So let's set it up in working form. 510 take away 312. Okay, so what do we see? We have 0 take away 2, I cannot do. So let's regroup. Let's take away this 10, so there's 0 tens, and now I have 10 ones. So 10 take away 2 is 8. 0 take away 1 we can't do, so let's regroup and take away 100, and then now instead of 0 I have 10 of those. So 10 take away 1 is 9, and 4 take away 3 is 1. So on Monday, they must have collected 198 magazines. That was my other part. So the two parts equaled the whole. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you're going to continue to work on today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.